We are back with a Fox News alert. Any moment now, President Trump is set to meet with the Qatari and UAE leaders ahead of the Strait of Hormuz fully reopening this Friday.
It all comes as Israel keeps pressure on Hezbollah in Lebanon, saying terrorist operatives still pose an immediate threat to Israeli forces in the region. But Commander-in-Chief is hopeful he can straighten them all out. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst live in Tel Aviv, Israel, with the very latest. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. As President Trump attends the G7, the world waits to see the detailed text of the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran. Senior U.S. officials said Monday that in the next 24 to 48 hours, those details will be released to the public about what's actually in the agreement. One of those officials explained the deal is performance-based, meaning Iran wouldn't benefit from sanctions relief unless they adhere to their end of the deal. This means opening the Strait of Hormuz and entering into detailed discussions to dismantle their nuclear program. Overnight, Vice President J.D. Vance was on Hannity and explained more about the goal to give Iran a chance to integrate into the world economy.
The agreement says they are not getting a single dime of American money. That's just not what this is. What the agreement does say, Sean, is, again, if the Iranians behave, and if there are sanctions relief, and if the Iranians are integrated into the world economy, we would invite other countries, not us, but other countries to invest in their country. That's fine, but only if they comply with the terms of the agreement.
We know that the agreement calls for a ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon. U.S. officials say Israel will be allowed to respond if attacked by the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the fight is not over.
We saved the state of Israel from annihilation. But I tell you, citizens of Israel, the struggle is not over. We will have to continue standing guard, continue being strong and determined to defend ourselves as necessary.
With the Israelis on high alert, some here have expressed distaste with the agreement, worried it won't adequately address Iran's desire for a nuclear program. President Trump spoke upon arriving at the G7, saying this is about Iran's former path to a nuclear weapon.
The main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about, because they probably would have used it if they had it. So we had two big moments. When they terminated the JCPOA, that was the Obama deal, the Barack Hussein Obama deal. And when I terminated that, it was very important because it was a road to a nuclear weapon.
The question that journalists must ask is, what if? What if the Iranians are unwilling to make those concessions in the detailed discussions over the next 60 days? There are many questions about this deal that we still have, and we have to wait for that text to be released. Guys?
Yeah, Trey, that is the key question. And the vice president addressed that yesterday, saying that all options could be on the table, whether it's blocking the Iranian ports once again or even entering into further military discussions. But if I could, Trey, ask you a question that's going to happen almost immediately with the president having these sidebar discussions at the G7 with the emir of Qatar and the president of the United Arab Emirates. Can you break down for us what those countries' objectives would be right now and what you think the president will be discussing with these two leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. These Gulf countries are on the front lines of this conflict, and they took significant incoming Iranian fire during Operation Epic Fury and even after, with Iranian drones and missiles hitting not only military targets, but also their civilian population. And so we can't be naive here. The Iranian regime in the past has not adhered to agreements such as the one that was signed, at least electronically, over the weekend. And so there are serious questions that have to be asked about the concessions the Iranians are actually willing to make, and if these can be verified in a process that moves forward. And it's not just Iran's nuclear program. There are major questions about that. It's also the Strait of Hormuz, and if the Iranians are going to have the ability in the future to enact tolls. Now, U.S. officials say that's not going to be the case, but Iran could try and put things like service fees for vessels that are passing through this critical waterway and still try to maintain a chokehold over this area if they're not happy with something in the future. And so there are a lot of questions that these world leaders are going to have for President Trump. But again, they were directly involved in the process here. The Qataris played a critical role at the last minute. They had a negotiating team in Tehran, and for 17 hours they were negotiating back and forth, delivering messages on behalf of the United States, acting as a back channel in all of this, while the Pakistanis were really the main negotiators in this agreement. And so they will be discussing many of the details of this memorandum of understanding. But again, it's one thing to sign a deal, it's another thing to implement it. And so there are still tense days ahead in the region and questions that we have to ask the administration.
Trey Yingst live for us this morning in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you. Let's bring in national security policy analyst Andrew Harding. And Andrew, Trey Yingst got us started on deliverables from this meeting with Qatar today. I'll ask you the same question. What should the president try to get out of Qatar when we have this meeting in a matter of minutes?
Well, good morning, Todd. I think it's important for President Trump to emphasize just how important this relationship is for the United States and why it's in Qatar's interest to align closely on this deal with Iran, but also in broader U.S. policy here. President Trump enters the G7 with a lot of momentum coming in hand with a deal with Iran, and that signals that his peace through strength approach has been successful. So it's very important now to make sure that not only members of the G7 are on board and are able to help where they can, but also make sure the president's coordinating with partners in the Gulf. And that specifically includes Qatar, the UAE, Egypt, other members that want to be a part of this process. The more cooperation and coordination that can happen, the better it will be to ensure that this deal is able to be enforced, that Iran's not able to get any type of escape route, and make sure that the United States security interests are best represented. But more broadly, there can also be further conversations on economic activity. Qatar's a big investor in American energy, notably with the Golden Pass project in Texas, getting some more LNG in the market is a good example of how there's a great security partnership, but also a growing economic partnership as well. I'm
glad you mentioned the investment part of this. Much is being made, at least on the left, especially in left-wing media, of the $300 billion for the reconstruction fund if Iran adheres to the terms of the deal. You heard Trey Yingst play that clip from Vice President Vance on Hannity last night. Some of that money presumably is going to come from private investors in Qatar. What do they want to get out of that money? What's their vision for those funds?
Well, first, I think it's important that we see the final terms of the deal to make sure we know exactly what's being agreed to and not. But in the event there are these types of private investors coming in from Qatar and other places, they're going to want to see some stability. They want to ensure that Iran is not going to pose a future threat. Of course, they're very happy to see that this deal will be able to, as the president's made clear, prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and ensuring that the Strait of Hormuz can be open. But they want that stability to ensure that Iran cannot flip the table, that they can't go back to enriching this uranium and posing a nuclear threat, or trying to impose unilateral control over the Strait of Hormuz. So as these investors come in, they'll look for private sector opportunities to ensure there's money there, to ensure there's a consistent flow of energy, but also provide an incentive for Iran not to try to go back to destabilizing the Middle East.
Yeah, I guess that's where my question goes. Where literally is this money? Is it going to go to build a hotel? Is it going to go to build like a sporting theme park? Or is it, in essence, a payoff to Iran for their good deeds, if you will, in adhering to the deal?
Well, I'm sure if you're putting private investment into there, these investors are going to want to see a return on their investment. So perhaps there will be these opportunities, whether it is, say, an entertainment, a sport field, or financial field, you name it, and perhaps specifically on energy. But as the vice president has made clear, there can be opportunities for Iran to engage in the global economy, but only if it's going to follow through on this deal. If Iran shows that it cannot follow the terms that it agrees to here, then it's going to increase the risk for any private investment to go into the country here, regardless of what the intention may be here. So at the end of the day, what these private investors will seek will be stability from Iran, that it follow throughs on the terms. And if it doesn't, well, the United States has made very clear that it's going to raise concerns and it's not afraid to restart additional escalatory actions if Iran's not going to follow through and try to destabilize the region yet again.
Big picture here, Andrew. Qatar appears to have been a crucial mediator in our deal with Iran. And we're talking to you on a morning of the G7 where, quite frankly, our relationship with our European allies has become strained over the course of time. Do you envision Qatar going forward into the future becoming one of our major allies, not just in this deal, but 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the line?
I think there is a lot of potential for this relationship. Not only the security front, in which Qatar right now hosts one of America's largest military bases in the Middle East, that is important for American security, ensuring that we can protect U.S. assets in the region, ensure that the flow of oil and other resources are able to go through the Strait of Hormuz throughout the region, counter Iran's terrorist proxies and any other threats in the region, but also economically. Again, when we think about energy investment, under President Trump, American energy is being unleashed and welcoming the investments of other countries that want to get in on the deal, get in on the Trump train of American energy here. So by seeing what we've already seen in Texas with Golden Pass coming online here, which there's still a lot to go, and which once it's at full speed, we'll be able to see roughly 18 million tons of LNG put onto the market. And that's coming out of Texas. That's coming out of the United States. So there's a lot of potential here, what we've seen already under President Trump's leadership of this relationship. And as the years go on, yes, this could be a strong potential for a stronger U.S.-Qatar relationship that enhances American prosperity and security.
Andrew Harding, great insight. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.